What happens when the world decides your worth before you even open your mouth? What happens when poverty becomes a label, and talent is ignored because of torn shoes and nervous eyes? On a bright stage filled with sharp lights and silent judgment, a poor Filipino boy stood completely alone. Not alone because there was no crowd, but because no one truly believed in him at that moment. The whispers had already begun. The quiet smiles. The hidden doubt. To many, he was just another hopeful child who would disappear as quickly as he appeared. His name was Eli Mendoza, a thin boy with gentle eyes and trembling hands. He carried himself with humility, shaped by years of struggle. Eli was not loud, not confident, not polished. He was sensitive, hard-working, and deeply emotional, someone who felt the world more than he spoke to it. Behind every step Eli took was his mother, Maria Mendoza, a single parent who had raised him with quiet strength. She was resilient, selfless, and endlessly hopeful. Life had taught her to endure without complaint. She believed in her son even when belief felt painful, even when dreams seemed too expensive for people like them. There was also Daniel Reyes, Eli's music teacher from a small community center. He was patient, observant, and calm. He had seen something rare in Eli, not perfection, but truth. A voice shaped by loneliness, sacrifice, and long nights without answers. The stage they faced was not just a place to sing. It was a place that exposed fear. A place that magnified background, class, and appearance before talent. Eli could feel it in the air. The weight of expectations pressed down on him like a storm that had already decided its ending. People did not see the early mornings Eli spent practicing with a borrowed guitar. They did not see the hunger he ignored so his mother would not worry. They did not see how music became his shelter when the world felt too loud and too cruel. They only saw a poor boy. And yet, within him lived a song powerful enough to challenge every assumption. A song that carried decades of pain and hope within its melody. A song that would test whether the world was ready to listen. Because sometimes, the most powerful voices come from the most overlooked places. And sometimes, one song is enough to change everything. Eli Mendoza's life had never been loud or easy. He grew up in a narrow neighborhood where houses leaned on each other, and silence often meant worry instead of peace. His days began early, not because he wanted to, but because responsibility did not wait. Before school, he helped his mother with small chores, carrying water, fixing loose wires, or cleaning spaces that barely felt like home. Eli was a quiet child by nature. He observed more than he spoke. His emotions stayed close to his chest, hidden behind soft eyes and a shy smile. He was sensitive, easily affected by the moods of others, and deeply empathetic. When people around him felt tired or sad, he felt it too. Music became the only place where those emotions could breathe. He had a habit of humming when nervous. Soft, broken melodies followed him while walking to school or sitting alone on the bus. He often kept his head down, not out of shame, but out of habit. Years of being overlooked had taught him to make himself small. His clothes were clean but worn. His shoes told stories of long walks and limited choices. At school, Eli was never the center of attention. He struggled with confidence more than grades. Some days, hunger made it hard to focus. Other days, fear of being judged made it hard to raise his hand. Still, he carried kindness everywhere he went. He shared what little he had and never complained about what he lacked. At night, when the world finally slowed down, Eli sat with a borrowed guitar. The strings were old, slightly out of tune, but they felt familiar under his fingers. Music was not a dream for him. It was survival. Every note helped him release emotions he could not explain. Fear, hope, loneliness, and love all blended into sound. As the audition day approached, Eli's heart felt heavy. Excitement mixed with doubt. He wanted to believe this moment mattered, but years of disappointment whispered otherwise. Still, somewhere deep inside, a fragile hope refused to disappear. A hope that maybe, just once, the world would listen. The biggest battle in Eli Mendoza's life was never about music. It was about being seen. For years, he had lived in the shadow of assumptions that followed him everywhere. Poverty spoke before he could. His appearance answered questions no one asked out loud. People decided what he deserved long before he had a chance to prove anything. As the audition drew closer, those silent judgments grew louder inside his mind. Every memory of being ignored returned without warning. The times his voice shook during school events and people looked away. The moments when laughter followed his attempts, not because he was bad, but because he did not belong in their idea of success. Each memory planted doubt deeper into his heart. Loneliness wrapped around Eli like a second skin. He had friends, yet felt separate. He loved music, yet feared performing. Every dream he held felt fragile, as if one wrong note could shatter it forever. He often wondered if hope was a luxury meant for others. For children with better clothes. For families with safety nets. Regret weighed heavily on him. Regret for believing too easily. Regret for dreaming too boldly. He feared becoming a disappointment, not to the world, but to his mother. She had sacrificed so much without asking for anything in return. Eli carried that weight with every breath. The thought of failing on that stage felt unbearable. At night, he lay awake listening to distant city sounds, questioning whether his voice mattered at all. The song he had chosen felt risky. It carried deep emotion and demanded confidence he was not sure he had. Choosing it felt like standing at the edge of something unknown. What if they laughed? What if they looked past him again? The central problem was not the judges, the crowd, or the stage. It was the fear that his life had taught him to expect disappointment. That no matter how pure his voice was, the world would only hear where he came from, not who he was. And yet, walking away would mean accepting that fear as truth. Singing meant risking everything he had left, his hope. The moment Eli Mendoza stepped onto the stage, time seemed to slow. The lights were brighter than he imagined, heavy and unforgiving. The space felt vast, almost empty, even with hundreds of eyes fixed on him. Every step echoed his fear. Every breath reminded him how small he felt in a place built for confidence. Then something unexpected happened. As Eli stood there, waiting, the noise in his mind suddenly faded. The doubts that had followed him for years grew quieter. Not because they disappeared, but because something deeper rose to the surface. A memory. A simple image of his mother sitting alone at night, listening to the radio while the world slept. Music had always filled the silence in their home. It had carried them through moments when words failed. In that instant, Eli realized he was not there to impress anyone. He was not there to escape poverty or prove people wrong. He was there because music had saved him. And this song was part of that survival. His hands found the guitar naturally. The strings vibrated softly, steady and familiar. With the first notes, something shifted in the room. The sound was gentle, honest, and unguarded. It did not beg for approval. It simply existed. As the melody unfolded, Eli stopped performing and started feeling. The weight on his chest loosened. The fear that once controlled him transformed into focus. Each note carried pieces of his life. Long walks home, quiet sacrifices, unspoken love. Without realizing it, he had crossed an invisible line. This was the turning point. The audience no longer saw a poor boy. They saw vulnerability. They saw courage. They saw truth. The song filled the space between hearts, breaking walls built by judgment. Even Eli felt changed. For the first time, he trusted his voice completely. The unexpected twist was not applause or recognition. It was internal. Eli understood that his worth had never depended on acceptance. It had always been present, waiting for him to believe it. Eli Mendoza did not walk away from that stage as a miracle or a legend. He walked away as something far more powerful, a reminder. A reminder that the world often misjudges the quiet ones. That talent does not always arrive dressed in confidence or comfort. Sometimes it arrives carrying scars, humility, and fear. His journey teaches a simple but profound truth. Strength is not always loud. Courage does not always announce itself. Often, it lives in the hearts of those who keep going despite being unseen. Eli's voice mattered not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. It carried a life lived with restraint, sacrifice, and hope. The story invites reflection. How many people are ignored because they do not fit an image? How many voices remain unheard because they come from places the world does not look? Eli's experience reminds us that judgment often closes doors before truth gets a chance to speak. There is also a lesson about self-belief. Eli did not gain confidence from applause. He gained it by facing fear and choosing expression over silence. His growth began the moment he stopped asking for permission to matter. That is where real change happens, not when others approve, but when we accept ourselves. For anyone watching, listening, or dreaming quietly, this story offers comfort. Your struggle is not wasted. Your pain can become purpose. Your background does not define your ceiling. What shapes you most is the courage to keep showing up, even when doubt feels heavier than hope. Life may mock. Life may test. But it also listens when truth speaks. Eli's song fades, but its message remains. Never underestimate a quiet heart. Never judge a story before it is told. And never forget that sometimes, the most powerful moment in life begins when someone finally dares to be heard. Because one honest voice, rising from hardship, can change more than a room. It can change how the world listens.